So I might be going through some of these questions fairly quickly, skip around as you need. Um, but for this, it says this table is on sale at two different stores. How much less expensive is a table at store A than store B? So this price tag here is its original cost, and now we're saying we're going to discount them by this amount. So we know then that we can do 315 times, and I'm going to do it the longer way just in case like you're struggling with this a little bit still. But we know we're taking a 13% discount. So we can multiply those two numbers together and we get 40.95. So since it's a discount, we know then that we are going to be subtracting that from our original amount, which was 315. So we'll do 315 minus the discount. And that then means that this chair at store A is now $274.05. So now if I want to do the discount for store B, we can do 340 times the discount. So 340 times 0.15, which is then going to give me 51. And then I know I need to subtract that from the original amount that we had, which is 340. So now I will do 340 minus our 51, which is then going to give us $289. So that means this one is going to cost $289. So the question says, how much less expensive is the table at store A than store B? Maybe the question on the test might say which one's cheaper and by how much. But if we want to know how much less expensive it is, we can then take that 289 and we can subtract the $274.05 from it. So 274.05. And when we subtract this, we get 14.95. So that means that the chair at store A is $14.95 cheaper. Right, Carter wants to hang a poster in the middle of his door. The poster is 14.25 inches wide, and the door measures 28.5 inches wide. How far should the sides of the poster be from each edge of the door? So he wants to put it in the middle of his door. It doesn't say anything about the height of it. It's just saying like here, if we had a door, he wants to make sure it's in the middle. So if it's in the middle and we hang this poster up, that means that the distance here has to be equal to the distance here. I'm just going to put X, but they have to be the same for it to be in the middle. He doesn't say anything about the height of it, so we don't care about trying to match it up here or here. We're only just trying to put it along the middle of the door the other way. So the entire door is 28.5 inches. And we know the poster itself is 14.25 inches. So what we need to do is we first need to do 28.5. I'm just going to make all these into decimals. 28.5 minus 14.25. And the reason why we're doing that is we're taking how wide the door is, and we're subtracting by how wide the poster is to get that this is equal to 14.25. And that's telling us that these two distances, which have to be the same, have to be 14.25. So then what we can do there then is, well, if both of these have to be the same, we know that we can represent that then by 2x. So that means that this is got to be equal to twice of the same amount of distance. So I can divide each by 2 and get x is then equal to 7.125. Or if you know what that is as a fraction, remember, I don't ever care if you do it as a fraction, mixed number, whatever you want to do, as long as the number is correct. But that means that each one of these distances must be 7.125 inches or 7.125 of an inch in order for them to be equal, and meaning that that poster will be directly in the middle. All right, so for this one, it says sisters Gloria and Rose are both getting a raise at work. If they each work 40 hours per week, how much more money will Gloria earn in 1 week than Rose? So we did problems very similar to this already. So this Gloria is getting a 4% raise on $9.25. So let's first figure out what kind of raise she is getting. So we will then do for Gloria, I'll do her in red. So I'll underline that. So Gloria, hers is 9.25. And once again, I'm going to do this the longer way in case you're not sure. Like I don't want to jump to things that kind of confuse people. So we're figuring out, well, how much a percentage of a raise is this going to actually give her? So that's 0.37. So that means she's getting a 37 cent raise. So I'm going to add that back to the original 9.25 that she was already earning. And that is then going to give her now a new wage of $9.62. So then to figure out how much she is making over 40 hours, we'll multiply that by 40, which then Gloria is then making $384.80. All right, so then for Rose, what we would do for her, I'll put her in blue. It's $8.50, and she is getting an 8% raise. So we're multiplying that by 0.08. And now that means that she's going to get a 68% raise, 68-cent raise, sorry. So we add that back to her original amount, which now means she is making $9.18. We multiply that by 40, and now she is going to be making, in 40 hours, $367.20. So how much more will Gloria make? Well, now we just need to just go ahead and add those two numbers together. So, or I'm sorry, not add, subtract. So we would then do 384.8 minus 367.2, which then gives us $17.60 more. So that will be how much more she is making. All right, so for this next one, Brenda's Bakery charges $3.50 per cupcake plus a one-time preparation fee of $3. Which equation represents the total amount paid for these cups, total cupcakes? So if she's making a one-time preparation fee of $3, that means that doesn't change. So no matter what, if you order 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 cupcakes, you're always going to have to pay that $3. But what does change is $3 per cupcake. So it's telling you if I order 1 cupcake, it's $3.50. If I order 2, what's $3.50 times 2? If I order 3, it's $3.50 times 3. So we can then say plus 3.5, and C is representing our cupcakes. So this is representing her total cost. So it will be T is equal to 3 plus 3.5 C, because for every cupcake that you make, you're paying $3.50. And on top of that, you have to pay $3 every single time as well. So for this will be equivalent to D. All right, Nicholas went shopping for fishing gear. He bought 4 fishing poles and 3 cans of worms for a total of $125. His friend Alec wants to know the price of 4 cans of worms, but Nicholas can't find his receipt. He knows each fishing pole is $15. Which equation could Nicholas use to determine the price of a can of worms? So I'm just going to start from the beginning. So he bought 4 fishing poles and he bought 3 cans of worms. So I know 4, and I'm just going to say F for fishing poles, plus 3 cans of worms, W. That's what we know that he bought. And we know that he spent a total of $125. So I'm just first writing out like this. And then it says he wants to know the price of a can of worms. He can't remember, but he knows that fishing pole is 15. So that means that F is equal to 15. So I'm going to then substitute that 15 in for F. So 4 times 15 plus 3W is then equal to 125. And if we look here, that is represented by this equation. So we know that if you go to a store and you buy things, we add them together to represent the total amount that they spent. We did end up knowing how much it cost for the fishing pole, so we were able to substitute that 15 in. Now, on your test, if you're asked to do this, you could multiply this out as well and say 60 plus 3W is equal to 125. I would accept that as well. And if you start to simplify it and said 3W is equal to 65, I would accept that. But usually when we are translating, we translate it exactly as is. So this is usually how you should write that answer. But obviously these are equivalent, as we already know. So you'd be fine with that as well. All right, so for this one, same thing as we talked about before. Like if it doesn't say you have to create an equation, you don't need to. You can logically think through this. I am going to write this as an equation so you can see how it's spelled out. And then we're just going to substitute what we know and solve for the unknown. So Jamie rented 3 bikes and 1 scooter. She paid $58.20 in total. The bikes each cost the same. The scooters cost $12.45 to rent. So I'm going to say 3B plus 1S for scooter. We know that she spent then $58.20. So that is translating it into an equation. We don't know how much she spent for the bikes. That's what we're trying to solve for. But we do know that she rented the scooter for $12.45. So now I can rewrite this as 3B plus $12.45 is then equal to 58.20 because I know that the scooter was $12.45. All right, then from here, we're just going to go ahead and solve this like we've done a ton of times throughout the year. So we're going to subtract, or throughout this unit. So we're going to subtract $12.45 from each side. So now we get 3B is then equal to $45.75. And then we're going to divide that by 3 to isolate that B. So that means the bike must have cost $15.25 each to rent. All right. Remember, on your test, if it doesn't say you have to translate it, you don't need to into an equation. You can just go ahead and solve. All right, Athena earns $9.50 per hour babysitting and is saving money for back-to-school shopping. She's already saved $80 and expects to spend at least $325. So remember, even if we didn't tell you an inequality, that at least should jump out at you. Okay, we're talking about a range of answers now, and not just an is 325 and not just a singular one. So it's telling us it's an inequality. Which inequality will help Athena determine how many hours she needs to babysit? Well, let's just go ahead and create it, and then let's compare it to A, B, C, or D. So if she's earning $9.50 per hour, that means that changes. 1 hour, she gets 9.50. 2 hours, she's getting 19, and so on. So we can represent that by 9.5 X or H. I'm going to write H just for hour, but you see they're written in X. It's the same thing. We create those variables. And next year, we'll learn a little bit more about this, where you have to define those variables and say what they actually represent. We talked about this when we did the provocation at the beginning of the unit, where we're doing cheeseburgers and hamburgers, and people were writing out different letters. And we said, okay, well, now we have to say what they represent. Next year is where we have to do that every single time, because you will start to create these more and more. She's already saved $80. She already has $80. So however much money she earns babysitting plus the 80 that she has. Now, at least means that is the lowest that she has to, because she expects to spend at least 325. She can spend more than that. So that's the lowest amount that she has to have saved. So that means that it's going to be greater than or equal to 325, because she can spend more than $325. All right, so then this would be the way that you set it up. So then that would be our C is then going to be our answer for this one. Remember, we chose H, they chose X. That's the same, just representing variables represent the unknowns. But oftentimes, once we get a context of the problem, we use a letter to help us understand that unknown a little bit more. Like writing H, to me, this makes more sense than X, because H is hour. So it just allows for you to kind of be a little bit, have a little bit more freedom and flexibility with it. But at least means that that is the minimum amount that she expects to spend, but she could spend more than that. So that is what we would be, how we could represent this. Right? Ken earns money by mowing lawns. He uses the inequality 15x plus 60 is greater than or equal to 200. Determine the number of lawns he needs to mow to afford to go to the amusement park. Which number line represents the solution? So represents the solution, so that means we need to solve it. So 15x plus 60 is greater than or equal to 200. So just like solving equations, they're PEMDAS in reverse. So we subtract the 60. So 15x is greater than or equal to 140. And then from here, we just need to just go ahead and divide each side by 15, which divide each side by 15. So that means x is greater than or equal to 9.33. So if you look here, in between each of these numbers, we have 1, 2, and then that third. 1, 2, third, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So that means each of these numbers, tick marks, is representing a third. So I know it's going to be 9 and a third. The equal means it's going to be closed. So I know it's got to be either this one or this one. X is greater than, and that's representing all of our solutions. So all the numbers that are part of the line that we're about to draw have to be more than that. So that means it is going in this way. Right? So that means our answer would be D. And remember, you see me always drawing my answers above, and I think this kind of shows why that is good to do. It can be hard to see where their line answers, but you see that little arrow there, a little arrow there, so they're showing you it's there. But once again, this won't be multiple choice, it'll be open-ended, so just draw your answers like we have them. Paul received $150 for his birthday. At the mall, he bought a video game for $25 and found shorts on sale for $12. He wondered how many he could buy. Which inequality and solution correctly represents the situation? So he has $150. He bought a video game for $25 and he wants to now buy shorts for $12. And he wants to see how many of these he can buy. So we can if he buys one pair of shorts, 12, two is 24. So that is the one that's going to be attached to our variable, because it's going to change by repeated addition depending on how many he has. So I'm just going to say S, they use X, but he has only $150, so he can't spend more than that, but he can spend $150. So it's got to be, in this case, less than or equal to $150. So then I'm going to subtract 25. So 12S is less than or equal to 125. Maybe S isn't the best variable to use then for me, because I write my S's that actually look like 5s. So maybe that does make sense to not use it on this one. And then from here, we'll divide each side by 12, divide each side by 12. So S is less than or equal to 10.4. But you can't buy 0.4 of shorts. So we can then say S is going to then be that he can buy 10 or less shorts, because he can buy less than that if he wants. So we can then say he can buy no more than 10 shorts, 12x plus 25. So C will then be our answer for this one. Once again, this will be open-ended. So you would just need to just write out that he can buy less than 10 shorts. You would need to show me, though, that this isn't your answer, and that you need to interpret and read that answer. All right, for this number 10, which inequality is represented by this set of solutions? So we would just actually need to go ahead and solve all these. So A is 3n minus 5 is less than or equal to 34. So add 5 to both sides. So 3n is less than or equal to 39. Divide by 3, divide by 3. N is less than or equal to 13. These are in a negative, so I know it can't be that one. If it wasn't negative, that would have been the answer. But now we have 4n minus 19 is less than or equal to negative 71. So we'll add our 19, add our 19. So since they're different signs, we then need to go ahead and subtract. So that would then give me negative 52. Divide by 4, n is then less than or equal to negative 13. This is our answer. We see it's colored in solid, so that means represents it's equal to. And then since this is going to the left, we know then that is our solution. Once again, we know that this third one couldn't be it either because it's positive, positive, and positive. So that number is not, and 4 is less than 30. So it's not going to turn it to a negative. So we knew that it can't be that one either. All right, shown as a rectangle, section A represents half of the entire area, B is an eighth, and C is 3/8 of the entire area. So if we want to then say, well, it's representing this amount of the entire area, we need to figure out, because it says find out how much each of the sections are. So we need to first find out the area, and the area is of a rectangle is our length times our width, or base times height. So our area is 44.2 times 23.6, which that means the area is 1,043.12. So that's the entire area. Well, A represents half of it. So the area A is 1/2 of 1,043.12. So 1,043.12 divided by 2. That means that the area for A is 521.56 units squared. For B is 1/8 of it. So it's 1/8 of 1,043.12. So 1,043.12 divided by 8 is 130.39 units squared. And if we wanted to solve for C, we could just subtract both of these from that 1,043, or it tells us that C is 3/8 of 1,043.12. So we can then do 1,043.12 and times it by 3/8, and that will then give us 391.17 units squared as well. So first you have to find out what the actual area is of the entire shape, and then based on what they give us here, you're just taking that of each section, or of each of the area. All right, so now let's go ahead and go to question number 12. So for this one, I think that this wording is a little bit unclear. So I'll make sure that it is worded a little bit clearer. But Kickbox Forever provides kickboxing classes. They charge for every class and also charge a one-time registration fee of $20. That one-time registration fee is to each person. So every single person is going to have to pay that registration fee. 6 friends each registered, so that's implying or telling us that they have to pay that one-time registration fee, that they're all registering for the first time, and took a kickboxing class. Total for all 6 of them was $150. So each person is paying for the kickboxing class plus that registration fee. And there's going to be 6 people doing this. And in total, they then spent $150. So this is the way that you would create your equation, because each person's paying for the kickboxing class and also at the same time paying that registration fee, because they're saying that they each registered, telling us that they weren't registered before. And I'll make sure this is clear that it's a registration fee per person, I would say. So now we can distribute the 6 in. So then we get 6K plus 120 is equal to 150. Then we will go ahead and subtract that 120 from both sides. So 6K is then equal to 30. Divide by 6, K is equal to 5. So that means each class is $5. Each class is $5. So this will be letter D for our answer. All All right, so for this last one, for your birthday, you would like to rent. You would like to rent skating rink. You would like to rent a skating rink for you and your friends. Use the table of prices to solve the problems below. Each friend that you invite will rent skates, rent a locker, and eat lunch. So each of them will rent skates, rent a locker, and eat lunch. So write and solve an equation, determine a number of people you invited to the skating rink if your party costs $229. So we know then here, we don't know how many people. That's what we're trying to figure out. So it will be $3.50 per person for skate rental, plus a locker rental is $1.50 per person. Lunch is $5 per person. The rink rental, so it doesn't matter how many people you invite, that's 120. And a cleanup fee is a total cost, 18% of the total lunch cost. So that means then here, if it's $5 per person, well, we need to figure out what 18% of that is. So 5 times 0.18 is 0.9. So that means that each person is also going to be 0.9, so 90 cents per person. So 0.9 is 18% of $5, and a cleanup fee is 0.9 of your lunch. And we know that they spent $229, so we can then go ahead and do is equal to 229. Let me make this a little bit off to the right to make it a little bit easier for you to read. All right, then from here, I'm going to combine all my like terms. So 3.5 plus 1.5 gives me 5, plus 5 is 10, and plus 0.9 is 10.9. So I got 10.9n plus 120 is equal to 229. I'm going to subtract the 120 now to start isolating my variables. So 10.9n is equal to 109, and 109 divided by 10.9 is then going to give me 10. So that means I invited 10 people. And that means I invited 10 people to my party. All right, so for this last one, your uncle gave you $30 for the arcade. If the all-day game pass is 15 and skill crane is 0.75 for each extra try, write and solve an inequality to discover how many times at most you can play the skill crane. So the all-day pass, so the cost of it is $15, and then the crane is 0.075x for however many times you want to play it. And we know that your uncle gave you $30. So you can't spend more than that, but you can spend $30. So it's less than or equal to 30. So that's the inequality we would set up. We would subtract 15. So 0.75x, however many times we're playing the game, can be up to $15 after you pay for that all-day pass. So 15 divided by 0.75. So x is less than or equal to 20. So that means that you can do this game or this skill crane thing 20 times at most. All right, that is it for